Bienvenidos a nuestro mundo. Soy Paul Esteban. Los niños comienzan a hablar regularmente después de un año de vida. Un año percibiendo el mundo. Alimenta la base de datos que da origen al lenguaje. Imágenes, conceptos, palabras, letras. ¿Cómo procesa el cerebro humano toda esta información? Recorramos los caminos de las millones de conexiones nerviosas que dan vida a un gran don de los humanos, la capacidad de comunicarse. Hoy, en nuestro mundo.
Hoy, en la vida secreta del cerebro.
At the age where you're expecting kids to say mom or dad, he would just be making sounds.
El cerebro de un niño. El milagro del lenguaje. ¿Cómo aprenden a hablar los niños?
How about this?
Y a leer. ¿Qué sucede si algo sale mal?
I have this thing in my brain that's called dyslexia.
Hoy, los dinámicos primeros años del cerebro. La vida secreta del cerebro. El cerebro es más amplio que el cielo, ya que puestos lado a lado, uno contiene al otro fácilmente, y a ti además. El cerebro es más profundo que el mar, ya que al juntarlos, azul con azul, el uno al otro absorberá, como las esponjas al cántaro. El cerebro tiene justo el peso de Dios, ya que al pesarlos, gramo a gramo, diferirán si lo hacen como la sílaba del sonido. El cerebro del niño es un profuso torbellino de miles de millones de neuronas comunicándose con otros miles de millones de neuronas para formar billones de conexiones que pulsan con energía eléctrica y química.
Exuberant connectivity. The cells literally are going wild making all these connections, discovering each other, forming the basis of what we call something learned. Learning is about connection and connectivity and exuberance.
You start with a block of marble, like a sculptor would. And there's a lot of marble there. A young child has hundreds of trillions of connections in the brain, twice as many connections as the adult. And then comes along the sculptor who takes away bits of the marble to reveal a form. Experience is the sculptor. Experience determines which of those connections to take away and which to leave. That's what learning is. It's changing the weights of the connections in the brain depending on experience.
El cerebro del niño es maleable, una magnífica y flexible máquina de aprendizaje. Un niño aprende a gatear, luego a caminar, correr y explorar. Un niño aprende a razonar, a prestar atención y a recordar. Un niño aprende a hacer amigos. Pero en ningún caso es más sorprendente el aprendizaje que en el modo en que un niño aprende a dominar el lenguaje, el gran salto que da el cerebro y que no es nada menos que un milagro. El cerebro de un niño. Las primeras palabras.
Hello, it's me, Rachel. I'm leveling my King Gun. King Gun, how a King Gun too? Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely King Gun. Oh, yeah, bye. Bye.
So has she started talking yet?
She talks, but we don't understand her.
Okay.
She says words, but there's no meaning.
Okay.
She probably has about 5 words that we can clearly understand. She says kitty. She says Elmo. She says daddy. She says get. She says woof for doggy. Does she have any other words, Nate?
I think Nate.
Oh, that's right. She says Dave for Nate. That's him. That's the big guy over here.
Ooh, wobbles.
I want to talk.
Look at this. Telephone. Hello? Who's there?
Ooh, I got a queen.
A queen? Let me see.
Language development represents one of these profound, mysterious changes.
You're welcome,
Nate.
honey.
You bring a baby home from the hospital, a wrinkly newborn at 7 pounds, and within 3 years, that child can talk in sentences and speak to anyone and deceive you with their words and inspire you with their words. And so it's, how does this come about?
Wow. Miss me.
Michael, wait, stay there. I want to do that too.
No, I gotta do with bananas, okay?
Oh, yeah, I want to give bananas too. That would be funny.
No bananas.
I know, that's what I'm going to try to do. There
Casi
we go.
todos los niños aprenden a hablar con tanta facilidad como un pájaro aprende a cantar.
No, oh, yeah, that's right. On a whole wall of this what?
Michael Blankenship es una excepción. A los 5 años de edad, cuando la mayoría de los niños ya domina la gramática, Michael aún lucha por hacer que lo entiendan y nadie logra comprender el porqué.
Did that guy hear that? Yeah, that guy just see me? What? Yeah.
When Michael was at the age where you're expecting kids to say mom or dad or some type of a noise, he did not offer to make any type of a sound. Didn't even try.
All the other nieces and nephews were, and we were noticing that Michael wasn't.
Get her.
I think Michael was probably close to 2.5 to 3 years old before he started saying the normal words that most kids start with.
What's my turn too?
And even at that point, when he would try to say mom or dad, it was ma and da. He still couldn't say the whole word.
Oh, peach. Oh, like a peach. I don't like peachy. Michael, it's peach. Peach. Oh, whoa, this wash. Nice try. Ow!
He didn't have much of vocabulary until I would say he was probably 3.5 years old.
Yeah.
And then he started picking up on different words. And we knew what he meant because he lived with us, but anybody else, our family, did not know what he was saying.
What does it look like? Do I look really big or really small? Small.
Las dificultades de Michael con las palabras no tienen nada que ver con su inteligencia.
Good, okay. If you turn them around, see what happens.
En su laboratorio en la Universidad de Oregon, la neuróloga Helen Neville está tratando de entender qué salió mal.
Oh, there's his ball.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, too.
I like to sandwiches eat for lunch.
Mientras Michael está distraído por un espectáculo de títeres, los electrodos en la gorra que usa detectan los impulsos eléctricos generados por su cerebro, mientras escucha oraciones con errores gramaticales.
Big kids like to Coke drink from a can.
We're eavesdropping on communication and the language system of the brain itself.
Make cookies with chocolate chips.
Neville estudia las conexiones entre el habla, la audición y la comprensión, partes íntimamente ligadas del complejo sistema lingüístico del cerebro.
It's very important to take a language-impaired child and evaluate what's deficient and what isn't.
The back yard.
Language depends on so many different systems and structures in the brain that a problem within any one of those systems could lead to a final common problem, that is, a language impairment.
Great! All of them down. Let's take a look at what we've got. Jumped? Oh, wait. I want to hear jumped. Perfect, perfect.
Mientras los científicos aún tratan de entender por qué el cerebro a veces no logra procesar el lenguaje exitosamente.
Crawled.
Con la práctica, niños como Michael pueden mejorar.
Crawled. Yes.
Michael still has difficulty producing sounds accurately.
Wick.
Licked.
Wick.
Yeah, that's close.
For example, the L sound, he doesn't have the L sound. He will work later on sounds like the R's and the V sounds and the TH sounds. He's improved dramatically. So many of the early developing sounds that he didn't have when he was initially seen are now there.
Nut.
Nut.
Very good. That's it. 8.
8.
Make sure you put that T on.
Pizza. They got cheese.
Hot.
Hot.
Hot. Okay.
Por medio de la repetición y la práctica, Michael está aprendiendo a hablar con fluidez, como lo hace cualquier otro ser humano.
Rat.
I
Rat.
got that.
Okay, good job.
Está moldeando su propio cerebro, cambiándolo con cada sílaba y sonido.
Would the kitty open?
Gate.
Gate. Good job.
He's excited to expand his vocabulary and to learn how to say words.
When you pet a dog, pat.
Pat.
Pat the dog. Very good. Sometimes you can't shut him up, but he's coming along. Every week there's a difference in his speech. It's getting better and better.
The human brain is highly adaptable. And the young human brain shows even a greater ability to change than older brains. By studying Michael and others like him, we're getting a very basic understanding of how a system of neurons in the brain could give rise to human language. This marvelous skill, which is without limits. Without limits, we can generate new sentences that you've never heard before, ad infinitum, and you can understand them, even though you've never heard them before. So how is that possible?
Mundo, la vida secreta del cerebro.
Sheep, 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 sheep.
Hay miles de lenguajes humanos, y los bebés nacen con la capacidad de aprender cualquiera de ellos. Comienzan escuchando. Un bebé descifra una cantidad de sonidos balbuceados con un oído más atento que el de un conductor de orquesta durante el ensayo de una sinfonía. En la Universidad de Washington, la neuróloga Pat Cole ha estado estudiando los fundamentos del lenguaje, las vocales y consonantes que constituyen las palabras.
In this particular experiment, we're looking at how children respond to the sounds of their native language and the sounds of a foreign language.
Sheep, sheep.
We're recording what's happening to the brain as the baby's listening to the Chinese Mandarin she.
Sheep, sheep, sheep.
And then what happens to the brain when that sound is changed to this Chinese Mandarin chi sound?
Sheep, sheep, sheep.
Now, of course, to us, they sound like she. They sound like the same thing. But we're interested in whether or not the baby's brain records a change when a physical change in the sounds is made. As Americans, we cannot hear the distinction. It really sounds like the same category, SH.
Sheep, sheep.
To the Chinese, they say, no, there's a very clear shift.
Sheep, sheep.
And the interesting thing that the studies have demonstrated is that at birth and for a short period thereafter, babies have this incredibly exquisite ability to hear differences between all the sounds used in the world's languages. The babies are outperforming us. I like to refer to them as citizens of the world. in the beginning. And of course, we're not citizens of the world. We're quite culture-bound listeners.
A los 7 meses, los bebés siguen siendo ciudadanos del mundo. Pero para cuando llegan a los 11 meses, ya son ciudadanos de un solo país, especialistas en un lenguaje.
By 11 months, the babies are behaving like their parents. This baby is not responding to the change between she and she. It's now she to the baby, just like it is for us as adults. The news is that by 11 months, we are not perceiving reality. We're not responding to the real differences that exist in the sounds. We're listening through this filter that was developed early in life as we mapped the sounds of our language during listening.
Ba. Ba.
The baby starts out with a keen ability to hear distinctions.
Ready? Can we do it again?
The feat of development is to actually form categories and ignore some of those distinctions.
Here goes the train.
The ones that are great for a foreign language, but not for the language you're trying to master.
3. 3?
And that ability has produced a brain that's a very, very different one than we saw just 4 months earlier.
Mientras el niño se va convirtiendo en adulto, el cerebro se hace más y más complejo. Un intrincado órgano modular con muchas partes altamente especializadas. En casi todos los adultos, el lenguaje encuentra su hogar en el hemisferio izquierdo del cerebro. El vocabulario, la gramática y la comprensión son sistemas de lenguaje distintos con circuitos neurológicos propios.
We have very little understanding about how this highly differentiated mosaic comes about. How did it get to be that way? That's what we want to know. Is it there at birth? Does it develop over time? What's driving the development? Is it based in our genes, or does it depend on experience?
What we're going to be doing today is measuring the brain's response to words that she understands from the list that you filled out. And we'll be recording over different areas of the brain, so we'll see where there's more activity and where that happens in the brain.
¿Qué tan especializado es el cerebro de un bebé? ¿Qué parte del cerebro utiliza un bebé para entender las palabras?
Pint. Unit. Dog.
En una serie de experimentos en la Universidad de California en San Diego, la psicóloga del desarrollo Debbie Mills ha hallado que los bebés de 13 meses escuchan y entienden con ambos hemisferios cerebrales.
Banana. Ball. Duck. What?
Pero a los 20 meses, cuando los bebés aprenden hasta 12 palabras por día, incrementando considerablemente el tamaño de sus vocabularios, el centro del lenguaje del cerebro ha comenzado a cambiar hacia el hemisferio izquierdo.
¿Dónde están los pies? Muy bien. ¿Dónde está la mano? Muy bien.
¿Qué impulsa esta especialización del lenguaje? ¿Es un proceso biológico inevitable, un producto del cerebro en desarrollo del niño?
¿Dónde está el agua? Muy bien.
¿O es un resultado de su creciente experiencia con las palabras?
Where's the diaper? Good job.
Los niños que entienden más de un lenguaje ayudan a los científicos a responder estas preguntas.
Muy bien. ¿Dónde está la leche? Ajá. Sí, mamá también tiene leche, mi amor.
Ariel Algace tiene casi 2 años. Como sus padres hablan inglés y español, entiende ambos idiomas.
¿Dónde está el gato? Muy bien.
Pero conoce más palabras en español que en inglés, lo que hace de Ariel el sujeto perfecto para el experimento de Mills.
Baby. Jugo. Bubbles.
Si la especialización del cerebro está impulsada solo por la edad, entonces multiplicado por 2, tanto el inglés como el español deben haber empezado a cambiarse al hemisferio izquierdo de Ariel.
Plantel.
Pero si el incremento del tamaño del vocabulario es lo que impulsa la especialización, Entonces el hemisferio izquierdo de Ariel responderá a las palabras en español, mientras que el inglés generará una respuesta en todo el cerebro.
Borde. Compute. Agua.
De hecho, Mills y su equipo han descubierto que en niños como Ariel el cerebro ha comenzado a especializarse en respuesta al español, el idioma que más conocen.
Cookie.
Las palabras en inglés provocan una respuesta más esparcida en todo el cerebro.
That really suggests that it is experience with language that's driving these specializations. It can't be maturation because it's in the same child and in the same brain.
The startling, astonishing revelation that has occurred over the past few years is that experience is a major player in driving the development and differentiation of the brain.
Si el lenguaje toma su lugar en el hemisferio izquierdo, ¿qué sucede cuando éste se ve afectado por alguna lesión o enfermedad? Durante la mayor parte de su vida, Katie Warwick ha sufrido convulsiones tan devastadoras que en la actualidad ni siquiera puede hablar. Luego de agónicas discusiones con algunos médicos en el hospital Johns Hopkins en Baltimore, sus padres han tomado una decisión. Los médicos de Katie les han dicho que la pequeña solo tiene una oportunidad de vivir como los demás niños. Atacar las convulsiones eliminando el lugar del cerebro donde se hallan, el hemisferio izquierdo. A Katie se le removerá quirúrgicamente casi la mitad de su cerebro.
When they tell you that, all you hear is the risk. 4 years ago, we said, I'm sorry, but we're not even going to consider that. That's not even an option for us. We're going to exhaust all of our possibilities with drugs before we can even think about that. Well, 4 years later, we did. There is no more drugs out there for her. She's been on them all.
La operación tomará 6 horas. Si tiene éxito, sus convulsiones cesarán y quizás Katie aprenderá a hablar de nuevo.
I just have to keep telling myself, the outcome is going to be worth it. The outcome is going to be worth it.
Stay out of the deep end.
Fue hace 7 años cuando a Michael Rabine, de 14 años de edad, se le extirpó la parte izquierda de su cerebro. Cada 2 años se reúne con otros chicos como él. Es un grupo pequeño de niños que ha regresado después de una operación que les curó las convulsiones, pero que les robó parte de sus cerebros, dejándolos con la mitad del cuerpo paralizado.
He had to learn to walk again, learned how to talk again. You know, it was
just like being an infant again, too. He had to start from scratch. He knew his ABCs and he could count backwards from 10. He had to learn all that all over again. So it was pretty hard.
It was an uphill battle. It still is today.
Yeah.
There's things today that he has to learn every day of his life.
You doing okay? Yeah, you look great. All right, I'll tell you what we're going to start with doing. I'm going to say 2 words. I want you to listen to them really closely and tell me whether they're the same word or whether they're different words. Are you ready? Pat, bat,
Different.
fit, feet,
Different.
buck,
En el hospital Johns Hopkins, la neuróloga Dana Boudman le ha estado haciendo pruebas a Michael Rabine desde que su hemisferio izquierdo fue removido como parte de su estudio sobre cómo los niños aprenden el lenguaje hablado.
One of the surprising findings of our study is that when we test Michael's abilities to understand speech, independent of his ability to speak, he performs within normal limits for his age.
Different.
The right hemisphere seems to do every bit as good a job at understanding spoken speech as the left hemisphere. And it suggests to us that those abilities are not just in the left hemisphere, but that they're represented in both hemispheres of the brain.
Ready to wear some headphones? Are you going to stay awake for this? I thought you got a nap today.
I did.
Oh, so you need another one?
It seems that there is much more plasticity there than we had originally anticipated.
How do you account for the fact that you can do all these things?
Try your best.
Persistence. Persistence is the key.
Determination.
You do seem like a really hard worker. I watched you doing those tests. Are those tough?
Wait a minute. Some easy, some hard.
What's the hard part? Is it remembering it?
No, speak.
Speech is the most difficult thing for a left hemisphere patient to overcome because you lose your speech center on that side.
Memory's good. You can remember anything.
I love math.
But speaking.
Hard. Wait a bit.
Todos los sábados durante el verano, Michael compite con mini autos de carreras en la pista de carreras Tri-County, cerca de su casa al norte del estado de Nueva York.
You flipped over once, didn't you?
More than once.
How many times did you go over?
Twice. Mike got scared half to death. I closed my eyes.
You must close your eyes, too.
Oh, my heart was in my throat.
We saw you holding your own, and then we saw the car break down. What happened?
That spark plug
Broke a spark plug. That
That-
was all it was.
And Daddy didn't have one in his pocket.
How'd that feel?
really sad.
You hate it when the little things let you down, don't you, Bub?
Mm-hmm.
What was Michael like before the surgery? Do you remember?
Climb a tree.
Yep, very athletic. You were at Tasty Freeze one night, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And you looked around, couldn't find Mike. He was up on the pole. And then the seizures hit.
Cuando los doctores locales no pudieron decirle a los Ray-Ban lo que sucedía, llevaron a Michael al hospital John Hopkins.
I think that they knew what it was before we ever got there, just from the descriptions.
Just by looking at him.
And then they just kind of dropped it on us. They took a lot of decision, a lot of soul searching to do it.
Yeah.
On a day when he had a good day, when he might have 50 or 60 or 70 seizures, you kind of had to sit there and go, do we really want to do this to him? You know, is it something that's going to benefit him?
Then the next day was
And then the next day
300.
he may have 300-400 seizures, and that was like, no, there's no doubt in your mind today. Finally, you know, it got to the point where it got so bad that
We had to do something.
And then the day we sent him into surgery, he didn't have any seizures that day.
La vida secreta del cerebro.
I began testing Michael as early as the first week after he had surgery. And despite the fact that he was largely mute at that time, he was showing an intact ability to hear and to process spoken speech. That suggests to us that these children may have the abilities already in place in the right hemisphere to acquire language, and that they can then build on those abilities and develop language. By 6 months after surgery, Michael's speech understanding abilities were back to what they were before surgery. At that point, he was producing 1- 2-word utterances spontaneously. Very slowly, the ability to produce words comes back over the course of a couple of years. The extent to which they're able to produce fluent speech seems to vary from child to child.
I got Michael in my class about, I think it was 7 months after the operation, and he was not using full sentences. He was only speaking in 2- or 3-word phrases and doing a lot of gesturing. We worked hard trying to get Michael to increase his vocabulary to speak sentences. I remember the first full sentence that he told me, that he gave us. He said to me, "I love you with all my heart."
Michael,
Yeah.
are you awake?
Yeah.
Are you going to be taking a nap in there?
No.
Good.
Al examinar los cerebros de niños como Michael, que han perdido su hemisferio izquierdo, Dana Boatman trata de aprender cómo se han reorganizado los sistemas de lenguaje.
Are you ready to start working?
Yeah.
You're going to hear those sounds now. I want you to decide if they're the same or different. If they're the same, you're going to press the button. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
We know that the right hemisphere is supporting language recovery. We're now starting to try and identify the exact areas in the right hemisphere that are being recruited. Is it the same area that the child used in the left hemisphere? Or is it a different area? Do they need more of the right hemisphere to support language than they may have needed previously in the left hemisphere?
Los hallazgos preliminares de Boatman muestran que las áreas del hemisferio derecho que asumen la tarea de entender el lenguaje corresponden a las áreas que efectúan la misma tarea en el hemisferio izquierdo, pero el hemisferio derecho no es tan eficiente como el izquierdo. Michael necesita más de su hemisferio derecho para entender la palabra hablada que un niño con ambos hemisferios.
We have children as old now as 16 years of age who have had left hemispherectomies, who are able to recover the ability to understand spoken speech every bit as well as they did before surgery, and as do normal children. So this suggests that we need to revise our notion of an age limit on when these surgeries can be done, and take into consideration the fact that different language functions may be affected differently by age.
All right, there you are. That's the shot. Right in there. He's still the same boy inside that he was before the surgery.
Right there.
He didn't lose his drive or his determination. He'll just keep trying and trying and trying. Get it?
Did it?
No! We've learned to rely on each other a great deal.
We're a very close family, aren't we, Bud?
Yeah.
You know, in a way, this kind of stole some of his childhood.
Yeah.
And it stole it from us, too.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the years that when he's in 1st, 2nd grade, those are pretty precious. I mean, they're still precious, the years that we had, but they were pretty frustrating, too. We couldn't ask for a nicer boy now.
There's the laugh.
En la plasticidad del cerebro de un niño hay razones continuas para la esperanza.
You want more push?
6 meses después de que fuera removido su hemisferio izquierdo, Katie Warwick ya no sufre las implacables tormentas de fuego en su cerebro. Aunque los años de convulsiones han dejado su huella, el hemisferio derecho de Katie se adapta a sus nuevas responsabilidades.
It's just a joy to hear her excited about something. She wakes up happy. She's really in tune to what's going on around her. She's a whole lot more aware.
You gotta reach it.
It's like an awakening. I told Robert it's like having a different child. We have to learn to get to know her all over again.
El lenguaje de Katie comienza a regresar. Su capacidad de entendimiento ha mejorado y también ha dado muestras de habla.
Oh, you don't want that ball. You want this ball. There's sounds and noises starting to come out of her. In her own little way, in her own little language. Just like a baby does, you know, how when they first start to say words, they're not very clear, but you kind of get the message of what they want.
Eyes, ears, nose.
Every couple of weeks or something, we'll see something different. Feel like you're so close, you know. It's just like tomorrow she's gonna come up and say, "Hi, Mom and Dad, what's for breakfast?" You know, it's just that close. You can just see her forming the words and trying to get them out. But I imagine it's a little tougher, you know, with the damage and stuff. So, but we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
There was once a prince who wanted to marry a princess, but she had to be a real princess. The prince looked and looked, and he met many princesses, but the prince sent all of them away. One day there was a big storm.
Para la mayoría de nosotros, hablar es tan natural e inevitable como caminar.
Come in, said the king. Come in, said the queen.
La lectura equivale a la actuación de un equilibrista sobre la cuerda floja, un acto del cerebro que requiere de la coordinación altamente sofisticada de muchas de sus partes.
Reading never just happens. Reading is an example of one of the most complex, everyday human cognitive performances we have.
And she went off to make the bed.
If we're novice or young, it happens in a certain way in the brain. If we're older, automatic processes are being used in other parts of the brain. If we're reading Chinese characters, one aspect of our brain is being used. If we're reading an alphabet, another aspect of our brain is being used. Once long ago, in a dark, lonely place, where the light of the sun was never to be seen, there lived an elfin creature with hollow cheeks and waxen complexion. Across the valley, in a place where the sun played on every leaf and flower, lived a maiden with cheeks like rose petals and hair like golden silk. Well, think syntax, think vocabulary, think words that you never ever hear in oral discourse around the table. The child has to learn to put all these hundreds of concepts together to read.
Tab is a cat. Tab has a pal. Tab is Mac.
Para algunos niños, leer es fácil.
Mac is a bad pal. Pat has the ham. Pat hit had the pen.
Para otros, es una lucha que nada tiene que ver con sus poderes para pensar o razonar.
the ham.
Nice job. Want to try it one more time? In order to be able to read, we have to understand what the correspondence is between the sounds that make up words and the visual information that we provide in letters. And so what happens is, for example, compared to language, which children acquire quite naturally, reading has to be explicitly taught.
All right, are you ready? Quick as you can. How about this one? Omar, you got it.
Reading is many different kinds of behaviors. It's letter naming. It's letter perception.
So we gotta make sure we know which letter it is. The stick is first.
Ship. Slip.
It's word perception.
Stick. Spin.
It's recognizing words.
Hand.
It's comprehension.
Tap. Hit. Sound.
And all those behaviors will utilize different parts of the brain. Whether we're talking about a single letter or whether we're talking about reading a passage of Proust.
The pen is hot. Put the...
Para leer, el cerebro debe enlazar una variedad de partes que evolucionaron para otros propósitos. La vista, el oído, el juicio, la memoria. Todos se juntan en un proceso de superposiciones muy veloces que los científicos apenas comienzan a entender.
We were looking at a very unusual skill that we have learned. And the question is, when we learn a skill like that, where do we place it in the brain? What part of the brain becomes available to do this very specific skill?
En nuestro mundo, la vida secreta del cerebro.
Para un niño que comienza a aprender a leer, incluso una simple letra desencadena una compleja serie de reacciones. El cerebro comienza por enfocar su atención en la tarea de la lectura misma. Luego, capta una representación visual de la letra y la envía a áreas del cerebro donde el símbolo visual se asocia al sonido y significado de la letra.
Trap. Trap. Trap.
Finalmente, la letra es articulada.
Sand. Stand. Flat.
It's incredible.
Flat. Land.
We've got about 17 different regions that are all involved in reading. One of them can easily go awry.
So why don't we start right here? What's this word?
Shoulder. Island. Island. Correctly. Scientifics. Banquet. Doubtful. Is it okay if I skip that word?
Can you give it a try?
Okay.
Just give it your best shot.
Mischance.
All right. Here we go, buddy. How about these?
I have this thing in my brain that's called dyslexia. I don't know the first one. Hesitating. It means something, I don't know, happening in my brain. I don't really know much about it, so my dad does.
We'd always been impressed with how intelligent Russell really is. And he has incredible creativity, he has a strong vocabulary, he's very interested in the outside world, he can put concepts together, he's very logical, and he's, in fact, a very bright boy.
Masculine.
What's that one?
Masculine.
La habilidad para aprender a leer es un don que no todos los niños reciben por igual. Millones de niños, como Russell Train, de 8 años de edad, son disléxicos, incapaces de interpretar lo que está en las páginas como sonidos y significados.
Say it one more time.
Certificate.
Let's move on to these. I know they're hard.
When you were little and you started going to school and you started learning how to read, how was that going for you?
Okay. Because they're mostly like the words this big.
And how about as you got older and started trying to learn to read other things? What was that?
It was getting a little harder for me because the words were getting bigger and the reading was getting a little more complicated and stuff.
There is some family history of this. Very bright people, but trouble learning to read.
I repeated 3rd grade. My middle sister repeated kindergarten. And we were just told that we had to repeat and go to after-school study hall.
O-A-S-D.
You were just a slow learner.
S-G-P-S-D-A-P.
Dyslexia is the inability to learn to process written language despite adequate intelligence, adequate sensory, adequate exposure. You have adequate everything, and yet your system has been differently wired.
¿Qué sucede en el cerebro de un niño disléxico que hace que la lectura sea tan difícil? En el hospital de la Universidad de Georgetown, en Washington, D.C., la neuróloga Guinevere Eden examina los cerebros de niños disléxicos para ver qué los diferencia de los niños que leen sin problemas.
Russell, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Is it loud enough?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're still trying to grapple already with what is the mechanism for dyslexia? How does the brain of a dyslexic differ? Brain imaging studies have shown that there are some areas that we see are active in individuals who are good readers during a reading task that we don't see in individuals who have dyslexia.
Ish.
Amp.
Una parte del estudio de Eden examina los cerebros de niños disléxicos mientras tratan de extraer el primer sonido de las palabras que se muestran en la pantalla. Los científicos han demostrado que el cerebro de algunos niños disléxicos no está activo en áreas responsables de desarmar las palabras en los sonidos que las constituyen.
Children who have dyslexia really never understand the concept that one word may be made up of several sounds. For example, in the word cat, the sounds are k, t, and we just blend them all together. And when we grow up speaking, we just say them as one sound, and that's all we need to do to convey the meaning. But now when we have to map that sound onto print, we have to understand that there are actually 3 sounds that make up the word cat.
That fundamental ability to take the speech stream and get it into its tiny sound parts is pivotal in reading. Otherwise, the teacher's up there saying, b-at, and the child has no idea what she's doing.
I know you've used the tiles before, so I'm going to show you some letters, and I want you to tell me the sounds that these letters make. Good.
Los niños disléxicos aprenden, pero de un modo distinto. El programa Linde Moodbell ofrece varias estrategias para ayudarlos.
Looked at really closely. It's like,
The placement has those.
Okay, so what we're going to do, Russell, is some color encoding or with the blocks. I'm going to give you a word, and you just put out the block for each sound that you feel, okay? The first word is flip. Good job. So what word do we have all together again? Flip. Good job.
What we're prescribing for Russell's treatment is a procedure where we slow down the articulation of how we say words. He needs to be hypersensitized to the ability to take those sounds and pull them apart, but equally important to then put them back together, which is what we do when we read.
Can you tell me the labels for the sounds? What your mouth is, what you feel your mouth doing? Great. And when you make the p sound, is your tongue tapping or are your lips popping?
Popping.
Right, so we call that a...
lip popper.
Yeah, lip popper. This sound here?
We stimulate their ability to give conscious attention to what they feel when they produce a particular sound.
A smile sound?
Yeah, why do we call it a smile sound?
Because when you say it, it makes your mouth smile.
Very good.
We know and we can see that you're getting behavioral changes. In other words, we can teach children to read better. What we don't understand are what are the mechanisms in the brain that at a neurophysiological level change as a result of that process.
Después de 6 semanas en Lindemoodville, la lectura de Russell ha mejorado y Guinevere Eden quiere saber cómo ha cambiado su cerebro.
Oh.
Basándose en estudios previos con adultos disléxicos que mejoraron su habilidad para leer, Eden especula que ahora Russell utiliza más áreas de su cerebro para leer que los lectores normales, tal vez incluso partes de su hemisferio derecho.
The thing will be more meaningful when we have several children who've done the same thing. That gives us a much better view on, what's really going on, rather than just saying something about one child or 2 children. Right, right.
Pasarán algunos años antes de que Eden complete su estudio. Pero mientras ella y otros científicos esperan entender el cómo, los niños disléxicos continúan remodelando sus propios cerebros.
Childhood can be one of the most wonderful periods of all of life because we have everything to discover. The child is father of the man, mother of the woman. I think the brain must be having a great time as a child because it's all plastic. If there's any one word for development and learning, it's plasticity. And plasticity, I believe, can be lifelong.
Es tan común para nosotros comunicarnos, pero ese acto a veces de apariencia involuntaria es precisamente lo que nos hace humanos. La capacidad de expresarnos y de compartir los pensamientos. Ese simple acto de hablar marca la complejidad de nuestra existencia. Soy Paul Esteban y los invito a recorrer de cerca nuestro mundo. Y los invitamos a un nuevo episodio de Nuestro Mundo.